Hello students, today we are going to study Indian economy, Unit 1, Development Policies and Experience starting from 1947 till 1990. Chapter 1, Indian Economy on the Eve of Independence. Under this, today we will discuss about occupational structure. It means that what was the structure of the occupation under British rule and after British rule, right? Okay, so let's get started. So first topic which we are going to cover is employment in India before colonial rule. So what was the status or the situation of employment in India before colonial rule? This is the point which we have to study here. Here it says that as far as the pre-British India is being concerned, was sprawling with opportunities, popularly known as the Golden Eagle. So, as far as the pre-British India is concerned, sprawling means it was full of. There was maximum and more number of the opportunities available at that time, and that's the reason it was means our country India was popularly known as Golden Eagle. That we already know, Sone ki Chidiya. It was among the most important contributors to the world economy. And if you will take its status in the entire world, so it was very important contributor to the world economy. It means country India was in somehow, although being a developing country, it was in the status to support the world economy. Now the next point says pre-colonial India saw traders from all around the world. And the handicraft industry was a highlight of the then industrial sector. But various other industries, although sparse, were arriving on the scene. So as far as the pre-colonial India is being concerned, so pre-colonial India has already seen the traders from all around the world. So it means we can say that India was getting the trade opportunities from all over the world, and that's the reason it has already seen or have witnessed the trade around the world. Then, urban handicraft industries was the highlight of then industrial sector, and we have already seen in case of the industrial sector topic that India was very much famous for its handicraft industries, cotton industries, textile industries, right? So it was very famous and highlight of those days. But various other industries, all those parts were arriving on the scene. And even not only this, there were several other industries were also generating and creating in that era or the year. Last point says the sprawling industrial sector produced a bright future. Now, this generating, or you can say it as the new buds of the opportunities and industries, were actually a kind of projecting a bright future for the country. This gave birth to a number of employment alternatives. So you can say it as at that time the alternatives which was available for the country in terms of the employment generation was at large. You can say it as was at large, and the opportunities were available at that time to the people around the world. And even the India was the country which was contributing in the part of generating employment and also contributing to the world economy too. Now I hope this point is clear. Let's move on to the next one. Here it says that people found employment in the industrial sector dominated by the urban handicrafts and agricultural sector. Skilled craftsmen formed the majority of these workers. Even you will see that the people found employment, means whatever the employment generation was available at that time in India in terms of the industrial sectors, but definitely it was totally dominated by the handicraft, because maximum business, or you can say it as the trade, deals with the handicraft, because it was the famous and the highlight of those days. And also agricultural sector, so you can consider both two sectors as the main sector, and we have already studied about it that both industrial sector and agricultural sector was the main sector in terms of the industrial in terms of the Indian country economy growth before colonial rule. Even the skilled craftsmen form the majority of these workers. Even the skilled craftsmen also form the majority of those workers who were very much efficient in those works. Next point says that evidently India was known for its excellent craftsmanship. Yes, we already know that India was very very famous for its craftsmanship, जो हमने आगे के points में पढ़ा भी है. Even we have discussed this point in our previous topics of industrial sector, agricultural sector, right? So we have come to know that India was very well versed in the sector of agriculture as well as the industrial sector too. Additionally, individual villages were self sufficient, and the village communities directly consumed these outputs. And as far as the you can say it as individual villages are being concerned, they were self sufficient. It means that they were having enough amount of generation in terms of the food, crops, etc. And the village communities were directly consuming all those output. There was no food scarcity at that time. Next point says that some other occupations were tending cattle, weaving goldsmith, pottery, washermen, carpentry, cobblers, surgeons, etc. So these were the famous occupations of those times before colonial rule in India. Sadly, all these affirmations went away with the dust since the advent of the East India Company. So, once the East India Company they came into the country India and they captured the country India, all these opportunities, the positive points which India stands for, which India famous for, all been dusted into the you can say it as because of the advent of these East India Company. So I hope this particular point of employment in India before colonial rule is clear to you, that our status was somehow better before colonial rule. Now let's see next slide. Now we will talk about what is occupational structure. What do you mean by occupational structure? So let's see what occupational structure is. So here it says occupational structure refers to the aggregate. Aggregate we already know as a whole or in totality. Aggregate distribution of occupations in society, means in total what is the distribution of the occupations, the employment in society, classified according to the skill level, economic function, or the social status. So when there is a distribution of occupational structure or the occupations among the people or the country on the basis of, you can say it as the society, which is classified on the terms of skill based people, then the economic functions, and also the social status of the society. So that is termed as occupational structure. Now we'll see occupational structure of colonial India or on the eve of independence, means at the time of independence or under the colonial rule, what was the structure of occupations. So let's see about it. The first point says the colonial exploitation forced India. Definitely the condition of India was very good before colonial rule, but once it came in under the control of colonial rule, they started forcing because they wanted to exploit it, right? So they started forcing India to transform from a country of combined agricultural and manufacturing activities to a colony fulfilling Britain's interest. So, this particular points explain us one thing very clearly, that these Britishers have not only exploited agriculture sector, industrial sector, the foreign trade, everything they have demolished. In the same way, the occupational structure was also being targeted by them, and they wanted that whatever is the yeah, as country India is known for because of its agriculture and industrial sector, they wanted that all those activities should be consist to one place and should be directed to one place, that is Britain, and they should work only for the interest of Britain. So that was the thing. Now the next point is the colonials carried out a decentralization of the Indian industries. This forced India to become a mere exporter of raw material to Britain. Decentralization means is to focus on one particular area, and your all the activities are somehow being devoid to that particular area only. So they wanted to means you can say it as they wanted that India should become just the mere exporter of raw materials for Britain. Next point is the Indian economy under colonial rule became primarily agrarian. So definitely the economy under British rule and was agrarian, because maximum number of the people, around 80 to 85% people, were relied on agricultural sector. So that was it was primarily agrarian. The workforce was diverted towards tea, indigo, and coffee plantation. And the people, workforce is what? The people, those who are working for the generation of the goods and services. They were forced to only produce and focus on tea, indigo, and coffee plantations. Let's see the next point. So there were some features of this, or you can say it as the highlighted features, which you can talk about the occupational structure, how it was being dominated. So the first point is that is predominance of agricultural sector, means how the agricultural sector was dominated by the colonials, that is which was the prime occupation of at that time. So the first is the people left with no other option after the downfall of industrial sector either flocked to these plantations or were forced by the colonials to do so. So as far as the people were considered, as the industrial sector was also demolished, the agriculture sector was also targeted by them, so they were forced to work according to them, whatever they asked them to do. Second point, the evidence of it is evidently the agriculture sector accounted for the largest share of workforce, which was around 70 to 75%. And if you'll talk about the workforce, the people, those who are working for the agricultural sector, it was around 70 to 75% people were working over there in agricultural sectors and were getting exploited by the Britishers. Now let's see the next slide and the next point too. Then the another reason was the growing regional variations. Regional means region to region it's going to vary. So there was growing regional variations, especially the parts of Madras Presidency, comprising the areas of present day states of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and Karnataka. So if you will talk about the Madras Presidency, it comprised of the present state, the states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala. Okay. And as far as Bombay and Bengal is concerned, they have witnessed the decline. Decline of what? Decline in the dependence on agricultural sector and commensurate increase in the manufacturing and service sectors. So as far as the Bengal and Bombay is concerned, there was a decline that these area workforce was not completely dependent on agricultural sector, because they were focused, I guess, they were main focused or working for the manufacturing and service activities or the sectors. Even at the same time, there was an increase in the share of workforce in agriculture. Yes, definitely, as we said, growing regional variations. So in one region where agriculture sector was not being promoted, industrial sector was promoted. So you will find in some other regions that the agriculture sector was promoted more than industrial sector. So the example is Orissa, Rajasthan, and Punjab, where the workforce was more focused and efficient and working in the area of agriculture. The next point is, by large, there was a drastic change in the occupational structure after the advent of colonization. So, definitely, as far as the structure of occupation is concerned, which we have seen how it was before colonial rule, there was a drastic change after the colonial rule in the occupational structure, which we have already seen. The selfish interest of the colonials completely transformed the volume of the workforce, and definitely the selfish interest of whom? The colonials. That has totally transformed the workforce and the volume of the workforce. Those who are working united are has been started working separately and were forced actually to work in particular areas. Now let's move on to the next slide. Third point is the lack of opportunities in industries. Definitely, the opportunities regarding under the colonial rule regarding industrial sector was also very less. How? Let's see. Only a small portion of population was employed in manufacturing sector. As far as the manufacturing sector is concerned, only very less number of the people were employed over there. Then the manufacturing and the service sectors accounted for only 10% and 15 to 20% respectively. So, if you will talk about manufacturing and the service sector, so the people, those who are working over there in these sectors, was only 10% or 10 to 15%, not more, or 15 to 20%, not more than that. Next is, this was due to stiff competition. This was due to this very tough competition that the Indian industries faced from the machine made cheap goods from Britain. And why it was happening? Because Indians were forced to work and compete with the machine made goods of Britain. Further, the lack of investments, initiatives, and the unfavorable tariff structure constrained industrial sector. And later on, the tariff policies, which we have already seen, there was discriminated tariff policies introduced by the Britishers. These all, even there was lack of investment too. These all, in totality, have brought up to the have totally stopped the growth of the industrial sector. The last point over here is, thus the industrial or the Indian industrial sector failed to provide significant employment opportunities, and that was the only reason कि later on जो employment generation की बात हम Indian economy में की before colonial rule के पहले बात कर रहे थे, that there was a lot of opportunities that people were getting in terms of this occupational structure is concerned. But after the colonial rule, the employment generation has stopped. अब लोगों को employment नहीं मिल पा रहा था. Right, there was a significant change in the employment generation. So these all were the features after colonial rule. Now we will see some crucial economic challenges at the time of independence. Now this particular point is going to cover all the things which we have studied till now, right? Because it deals with all the challenges which Indian economy has faced at the time of independence. So let's see what were those challenges. So the first challenge was the low agricultural output. Definitely before colonial rule, the output generation. Output is what? Means the production was very, you can say it as the production was enough, was generated in very enough amount that the country was self-sufficient at that time. But later on, after the advent of the colonials, the low agricultural output was witnessed, and was one of the factor due to which the colonial impact on the country, and only the items that were of the monetary importance of the government were grown. And according to the colonials, only those items they were forcing Indians to produce that have the monetary importance. By selling those goods, they can generate more amount of money. Second reason was, what was the challenge which the Indian economy faced at the time of independence was the low level of industrialization. Yes, definitely, the colonials have actually, you can say it as, exploited the industrial sector too, and there was a decline in the handmade products because they were forcing the Indians to compete with the man-made products, and they were also promoting the man-made products, machine-made products more as compared to the man-made products or the handmade products. Then the next point is low level of national income per capita income. As far as this national per capita income is concerned, we know that this is per person. Per capita is what? Per person income. So the Britishers have never made any effort in order to calculate the per capita income or the national income, right? It was firstly calculated by some of the noble economists, and one of them is, you can say it as, Mr. V.K. Rao. So in this way, we got our national income. But yes, definitely India faced the challenge of national income as well as the per capita income. Next point is the low standard of living, low expectancy and life expectancy, and also the high infant mortality rate. Yes, definitely in the previous topic only we have discussed about as far as the demographic condition is being concerned. So there was everything going very, very worst and in a very drastic situation it was at that time in the colonial rule, because we have seen the low level of standard of living of the people, as well as there was life expectancy was also very low, about around 32 years. And then we have seen the high infant mortality rate that was at an alarming situation of 218, right, at the time of colonial or at the time of independence. Then the last point over here is high level of unemployment and gross underemployment. So definitely this point which we were studying today about occupational structure overall in totality, it talks about that as far as the employment generation is being concerned, the employment was very less, right? The high level of unemployment was definitely over there, and the gross employment which was available also, that was underemployed. So that was all because of this. These challenges were being forced by or faced by the Indian economy or the country India. I hope these points are being clear to you. So now we have some important questions with us. That is, what was the status of employment in India before colonial rule? So you have to tell about the employment structure before colonial rule. Second is, what do you understand by occupational structure? What is the meaning of occupational structure? Only this you have to tell. Then you will highlight the salient features of India's pre-independence occupational structure. So just now we have seen the salient features of pre-occupational structure, just like growing regional variations, predominance of agriculture sector, and also the lack of industrial sector employment generation. Then the fourth question is, what do you understand by regional variations? Means how the regional variation was growing, and what do you understand by that particular point? You have to explain it. Question number 5 is, underscore some of India's most crucial economic challenges at the time of independence. Just now we have discussed about the challenges which was faced by India in totality at the time of independence. So I hope this is clear. Now, thank you so much for watching.